Thank you for leasing your new Vanguard Double Eagle bonding machine. Here's what you need to know to properly set up and operate the unit. First, use the jack screws to stabilize the machine. You'll need a 1/4-inch Allen wrench and a standard 1/2-inch wrench. Use a cord-rated 15 amps at 125 volts. Push the power switch to on. Allow the machine to reach the operating temperature shown in red on the front control panel. Take a new coil of parts with the tape still on. Insert the spindle through the coil and place it into the machine. Make sure the end of the strip is coming over the top of the coil. Center the coil between the sides of the machine and check that it spins freely. You can now remove the tape. If you're going to be using 1-inch parts, you'll need to insert the 1-inch stock guides. You'll find 2 in the toolbox with the thumb screws used to attach them. The stock guides go in the back of the machine next to the small belts. Loop the parts under the strip tensioner and onto the rubber belt cogs. Make sure the metal parts of the strip are covering the dots drilled next to the belts. If the motor is not on, turn it on now. Make sure that the photo eye switch is turned off. The switch is located under the table on the left side. Use the foot pedal to advance the parts to the front of the heater plate. The machine is now ready to operate. You can attach the start of a new coil to the end of the old one by placing the metal parts over one another on the belts and taping them together. Then run the strip through the cutoff blade and pick out the taped parts. 2 bonding inserts are provided with the machine, one steel and the other rubber. The steel insert should be used whenever possible because it will not wear out where the rubber one eventually will. The rubber insert should only be used when the fastener will be applied onto a stepped layer of paper or other uneven surfaces. Choose the appropriate bonding insert and use the paper guides to position the part on the folder. At this time, you need to decide if you're going to use the photo eye. With the photo eye switch turned off, the parts will advance once each time you press the foot pedal. With the switch turned on, the parts will advance with the foot pedal held down, but only when a folder is inserted into the machine. The photo eye will see the folder and trigger the machine. The rubber insert will bond over uneven surfaces like this. If you have a double machine, you can split the machines, making the parts farther away from each other on the folder. First, loosen the 6 bolts on the front center of the table. Next, remove the clamps on the legs of the machine. There is one on each side. Now find the 2 knobs on the lower right side of the machine. Turn them together counterclockwise to spread the machines apart. When the machines are the correct distance apart, put the clamps back on and tighten the table screws. The front counter displays the count you will be using to keep track of the number of folders you have run. This count can be reset to 0 by pushing the red button. You can also stop the counter from counting by flipping the switch down. You can use this to adjust your count for bad parts. The top counter keeps track of the total number of times the machine has cycled. This counter cannot be reset. Now we're going to cover some typical problems you might run into. If the parts are slipping out of the belt cogs in the back of the machine, there are several things you can do. First, make sure that the coil is centered between the sides. This is the most common problem. If that doesn't work, remove the coil from the spindle and spray some dry silicone on the black shaft. Also check for glue buildup along the path of the paper. If the folders stick to the bonding insert, which tends to happen on a hot day, remove the insert and spray it with dry silicone. Make sure all glue residue is gone. Replace the insert. Sometimes the waffle pattern on the finished part will start looking flat. This may indicate the bonding ram needs to be cleaned. If you remove the bonding insert, you can see the waffled bonding ram. You can also raise the ram to make it more accessible. To do this, first turn off the motor. Lift the black door on the right side of the machine. Find the motor. Directly above the motor is the clutch. Push the top side of the brown lever. This will release the clutch. Put a 5/16 Allen wrench in the hole at the front of the machine, just above the control panel. Turn the wrench counterclockwise until the bonding ram is at its highest point. Use the wire brush from the toolbox and a nail to clean the glue and paper residue from the waffle pattern. If the parts are not cut in the center of the notch, the blade will have to be moved. To do this, turn off the motor. Remove the cutoff insert and loosen the 3 screws in the blade holder. Slide the blade holder back to center. Tighten the screws and recheck the cutoff. If the blade will not cut the paper, turn off the motor. Remove the cutoff insert. Clean the stop blocks located on each end of the blade. Also, clean the bottom of the cutoff insert and the ledges that it sits on. If it still doesn't cut, shim or replace the blade. To do this, unscrew the 3 bolts in the blade holder and remove it. Loosen the set screws through the front side of the blade holder. Shims can be placed under the blade in the narrow groove. All shims should fit completely in the groove and not hang over. It's easier to simply replace the blade with a new one. The blade can be removed by pulling it from the top with a pair of pliers. When putting the new blade in, make sure that it's flat in the blade holder. Do this by placing the blade holder on something flat, like the table on the machine. Push the blade all the way down against the table. Gently tighten the set screws. Replace the blade holder. Adjust the cutoff for proper alignment. If the photo eye does not work, it may need to be cleaned. The lens of the photo eye is located on the left rear paper stop over the heater. Using a Q-tip from the toolbox, clean the bottom side of the lens. Do not use chemicals. Use the Q-tip dry or slightly moistened with water. If the machine does not work at all, check that the motor is still running. If the motor is not running and the power and motor switches are both on, then the circuit breaker has probably been tripped. The reset button for the circuit breaker is on the back panel of the machine. Before you reset it, check that no parts have become glued to the bonding insert. Push the reset button. If the motor doesn't come back on, call Vanguard. If you've called Vanguard and we've determined that the problem is in the control panel, you'll have to remove it. To do this, remove the 4 screws in the front of the panel. Next, open the side door and locate the 2 connectors on the back of the control box. Pull the yellow one straight out and unscrew the other one counterclockwise. Pull the box out the front of the machine. The heater should be cleaned occasionally to remove glue buildup. Let it cool down first. Use the black scraper from the toolbox to scrape off the old glue. We recommend that the machine be cleared of paper scrap on a regular basis. Using compressed air, first blow off the cutoff and bonding rams. Next, blow air from the coil area forward into the middle of the machine on both sides. Then blow through the vents on the sides of the machine, working forward so that all of the paper scrap comes out the front. If you encounter a problem which is not dealt with in this video or the printed manual, call Vanguard. We're committed to helping you get the most out of your Double Eagle bonding machine.